you want to call a hold on a Hail Mary, and I get it because it's the rules, then you're going to have to start calling pass interference on Hail Mary. Because that's the other thing, is they're all there and they're doing this, and the wide receivers are being touched before the ball gets there. That is pass interference.
Connor Rogers week to week with a shoulder injury after that shove, much like Jordan Mason. And Shohei Ohtani.
Fantasy Football Happy Hour with Matthew Berry, served by Applebee's.
Welcome to the Fantasy Football Happy Hour. Happy waiver wire day. Connor Rogers, Jay Croucher, Matthew Berry out there somewhere in the world in a bunker. Matthew, how are we feeling?
You know what, we're good. I had to suddenly rush out of town, had to deal with something, but I will be back later this week. I appreciate everyone's patience with me as I am, from an undisclosed bunker that happens to have a nice bed frame. So, there's that, I suppose, behind me.
Oh, dear. All right.
Sounds worse background.
We'll see how we go today. Yeah, I mean, the last background you had felt like it was in a cabin in Switzerland that was allegedly in Tuscaloosa via Zurich. So this is a big step up. Love the lighting, love the hat, love the face. Looking forward to a good show.
Listen, it is Tuesday with backup producer Pete. So we got Monday Night Football takeaways, Giants, Steelers. We got our Back to the Futures bets, of course, but we got a long list of waiver wire candidates that you're going to want to listen to. And let's start with the wide receivers for waiver wire today. Before we even do, just so you know, the two teams on a bye, the 49ers and the Steelers, both on bye weeks. You might need a replacement for guys that you've been playing with those rosters. We're going to start with Josh Downs of the Colts, but the bigger topic around Josh Downs is who is going to be the quarterback throwing him the ball. We got to hear from Coach Shane Steichen on exactly that, whether it's Anthony Richardson or it's time for Comeback Player of the Year, Joe Flacco. Take a listen.
Is he starting Sunday?
We are evaluating everything.
Is there a question that he starts Sunday in Minnesota?
Like I said, we're evaluating everything, not just the quarterback, everything. Like, we all got to be better. I mean, we're sitting at 500. And, I think, looking back at what we've done, there's a whole bunch of areas that we can improve on. I'm not just talking about the quarterback. I'm talking about everything. And we got to be better moving forward.
When you say evaluate everything, any questions about you as a play caller?
Right now, I'll still be the play caller.
Is Anthony your starting quarterback right now or not?
Right now, today is, yes.
Just you don't know for the upcoming game if he is a starting quarterback.
We're evaluating.
It certainly didn't sound like a yes, Matthew, that Anthony Richardson is going to be the Colts quarterback going forward.
It's one of two things. Either it's definitely going to be Joe Flacco, and he doesn't want to announce it just yet, or Shane Steichen is awful in front of the press. Because, that's rule 101 of addressing the media, right? It's like if you've got in your mind that Anthony Richardson's starting, then you just say so. And by the way, honestly, he should have just said so. And then on Thursday or Friday, if they want to make a switch, we've evaluated it, and But he's made a story now into something that he could have kept as a non-story if he just stopped and said, nope, we're sticking by Anthony Richardson, and just left it at that. But he left the door open. And they're evaluating almost everything. Apparently, they're not evaluating him as the play caller, right? Because he was just like, no, I'm still the play caller. They're like, are you going to evaluate you as a play caller? No, I'm still the play caller. But we're evaluating everything else, apparently. It's just, and I just think, honestly, if Anthony Richardson was the starter, I don't know why Steichen just doesn't say that. They give him an out. Is he the starter today? And he says, yes, he's the starter today. And just shut up at that point. But no, he keeps going. He goes, but we're evaluating everything, which is just feels like it's really opening up the door here, guys, for Joe Flacco. Comeback Player of the Year, Joe Flacco. I don't know if you're aware of this, guys, but last year, Joe Flacco was the NFL Honors Comeback Player of the Year, and now he's got a chance to once again start for the Indianapolis Colts this weekend.
Yeah, and if Joe Flacco does, Jay, that means great things ahead for Josh Downs. Josh Downs had a good week with Anthony Richardson, but, he's been up and down since Richardson's been back. With Flacco, he's averaged 18.5 points per game.
Yeah, I think the good thing with Downs as well is somehow it's available in 53% of leagues. That shouldn't be the case even if Richardson is the quarterback, but if it's Flacco, then he's like a wide receiver 2 type, I think. And even if it's not, at least he showed some ceiling with Richardson last week. And Like Richardson right now, I mean, like we just haven't really seen this before in terms of the lack of accuracy, in terms of completion percentage over expected in the NFL. The third worst quarterback in the league, Jacoby Brissett, -2.5%. Second worst, Spencer Rattler, -9%. And then Anthony Richardson is -14.6%. Like, it's just, you don't see that. Like, even guys like Zach Wilson was like -3% last year, Tommy DeVito as well. So I don't know, what percentage chance would you put that Anthony Richardson is the guy? Because the thing to me is like, yeah, why would Steichen not endorse him? Like, it feels like Steichen was pretty upset with Richardson, the way that he played against the Texans and the fact that he took himself out of the game because he was tired, which I've never seen before.
Right.
So I'm not sure if there's an element of trying to light a fire under Richardson.
That's the other part that could be the case here, that it's you're looking at a young player and not guaranteeing him the starting role going forward. But the Colts are a team right now, as they've hovered around 500 the entire season in an AFC that's really been underwhelming. The playoffs are on the line here.
Yep.
And if you told me today they're going to go with Joe Flacco the rest of the season, I'd probably pick the Colts to make the playoffs.
Yep.
If you told me today that they're going to ride this out with Anthony Richardson, and I understand the thought process if they do, because he was their pick, he needs reps, he needs to get better in a game environment, I don't think I would take them to make the playoffs. And that's a jarring difference right now, Matthew, for this offense. We've made fun of Bo Nix a lot for being a guy that gets his fantasy production until last week through the ground. For Anthony Richardson, besides a few big plays, he's another guy where there's no throwing production, and the running production hasn't lived up to the hype we once thought it would.
That's the key, right? I mean, you can be a very productive fantasy football quarterback without throwing the ball. We've seen this a number of times. Like for all the jokes that people want to make, but back in the day, Tim Tebow was a top 10 fantasy quarterback because of the rushing, and he would never ever throw. You know, you think about Lamar Jackson's rookie year or Jalen Hurts' rookie year.
Justin Fields.
Like, they were barely throwing. Yeah, Justin Fields, perfect. Another great example. Exactly. But to your point, the rushing hasn't been there with Anthony Richardson, and I don't know whether it's a reluctance on his part to duck and run, whether they're not calling enough designed runs for him.
He gets tired.
We made this. Yeah, when he's tired, it's, listen, I didn't get enough orange slices. I gotta get. I don't know. It's just whatever it is. It's not working, and listen, for everyone out there that wants to complain about Kyler Murray as your ride or die, you could have had Anthony Richardson, because I saw a lot of people in the industry very, very high, extremely high on Anthony Richardson. And by the way, I think I had him at 5. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not off the hook either. But Anthony Richardson was pitched to me a lot as somebody who should be a ride or die, and I said no, and I'm glad I didn't go that direction. But it's a tough situation. I feel bad for the kid. I interviewed Anthony Richardson, really liked him a lot, and he's got too much talent. I feel like too much potential to just sort of like, this is so weird. I get it. You guys are 4-4 and you're frustrated and you feel like the season's on the line, and the Colts are the Texans are kind of running away with this division a little bit, but like, you guys spent a top 5 overall pick on him. You can't bail. What is he? How many games has he played? Full games has he played in his career? 8? 9? It's insanity to me, Connor. But as it relates to what we're dealing with, Josh Downs needs to be rostered in every single league. It's ridiculous that he's out there in 53%. I agree with Jay. Of course, it's super annoying that you, Connor, have him in our league.
Yeah, and somebody else I have, Matthew, is Cedric Tillman in our league, who's 80% available, both Browns wide receivers, because Jerry Jeudy's available in 55% of leagues with how bad things were in this passing offense with Deshaun Watson. But it's a new era. Yes, they have the Chargers, the bye week, the Saints, and the Steelers, so not the easiest road ahead. But with Jameis Winston under center, Matthew, the outlook for these wide receivers has completely changed, especially Tillman, who went from a guy on the bench to maybe being a wide receiver 2 for the rest of the year, or a wide receiver 3?
He's absolutely a wide receiver 2 for the rest of the year. Honestly, just having anyone other than Deshaun Watson under center gives the offense in Cleveland some viability, right? But the other thing that's important here is obviously Amari Cooper. And so that opened up an opportunity for Cedric Tillman, who has now had back-to-back games with at least 7 receptions and at least 80 yards. He's averaging over 23 fantasy points per game. You see it there on your screen. He earned 9 targets, 99 yards, 2 touchdowns, 7 receptions as well. He's gotten an end zone target in each of the last 2 games as well. So getting a tremendous amount of run with the Browns now that Amari Cooper is no longer there. And with Jameis, he's like the perfect quarterback for fan, because James don't care. James will be like, club set's down there somewhere, F it, and throw it. And so I'm going to try to make club set a thing.
I know.
I'm going to work on that.
We're on board with this one.
Yeah, I like it.
Yeah.
Much better than usual.
Yeah, so anyway, but Cedric Tillman, it drives me crazy. You outbid me by $1 on Cedric Tillman. It was super annoying, Connor, and you boat raced me in our league. Like, I can't even complain. Like, I put up a top 5 score in our league. Like, I was like the 4th highest scoring team in our league, but you put up almost 200 on me. Like, I mean, just absolutely boat raced me. It was embarrassing what you did to me. You slapped me like a grape. You kicked me like a grape. You had your way with me like a grape, to be perfectly honest. And I'm squishy grape juice in your mouth. Like, that's how much.
Terrifying. Wow.
What a visual.
That's a shocker.
Yeah, it's true. Anyway, Cedric Tillman, 81% available. I think he's a wide receiver too for the rest of the year, because that's a team that needs to see what they have. Like, who knows how long Jerry Jeudy is there? I feel like we've always been waiting for Elijah Moore. Feels like this passing offense, which has taken a big step under Jameis Winston, big step up, is going to be David Njoku and Cedric Tillman going forward.
Yeah, I'm with you. And Jay, one quick mention of Elijah Moore. He is 97% available. He did have a good week. He feels very Wan'Dale Robinson, Ray McLeod-ish. And I know he had a bigger week than those guys usually do. But if you're desperate, maybe somebody to throw on the bench.
Yeah, he's getting plenty of targets.
That's
I think
key.
he's a solid, desperation flex play each week. You'd clearly have him 3rd in the pecking order. But this team is, I think, just by necessity and by the nature of the full Jameis experience, they're going to be throwing a lot because he's going to throw and he's going to throw interceptions, which means that he needs to throw more to catch up in games. So I think that Elijah Moore is somewhat viable in a way that he wasn't with Deshaun Watson.
Another player kind of in the similar mold, but in a brutal situation, is Xavier Legette right now, Matthew. He's 85% available. He doesn't catch passes from Josh Allen. It felt like a gift when he was catching passes from Andy Dalton, and they had to go back to Bryce Young for obvious reasons. It's a weird one here, Matthew, because he gets the touchdown last week, but it was so early in the game, and then he almost did nothing. They have the Saints, Giants, the bye, and then Kansas City. But Legette's available, and people probably need wide receiver help right now.
He's available in 85% of leagues. Like, I think, look, Denver's a tough defense, and I thought Bryce Young looked better last week, understanding that that's an incredibly low bar to clear. But last week, Xavier Legette earned a target on 27% of his routes. He got 39% of the team's air yards as well. He was working as the de facto number 1 wide receiver. He's got at least 1 red zone target in 5 of his past 6 games. He's got 3 touchdowns in that stretch, so he's somebody that can score as well. And I think the most important thing here is that he was operating as a number 1 wide receiver, and that's what he could be going forward. Deontay Johnson is largely rumored to be on the trading block. Christian Kirk, another guy that was on the trading block, out for the year with that collarbone. So if you're in wide receiver need, if you're an NFL team looking for a wide receiver, Kirk's out for the year. The Rams won last week, and they're basically saying, nope, never mind. We're not trading Cooper Kupp. So now all of a sudden, Deontay Johnson, I think, is the most attractive and viable wide receiver on the trade market right now. So I think there's a better than average chance that Deontay Johnson gets moved before the deadline. Adam Thielen is what he is at this point of his career. He was injured last week, but he's not somebody who's earning targets at a high rate. And so whether it's Bryce Young or Andy Dalton under center for the Panthers, feels like Xavier Legette is going to be the number 1 wide receiver on an offense that has shown throughout this year produce a volume to support a number 1 wide receiver in fantasy. I think that that Deontay Johnson, has been productive for much of the year.
Yeah, I think the thing with Legette, who, by the way, Patrick Surtain has allowed 1 touchdown pass all season, and it was to Xavier Legette,
from Bryce Young.
which could end up being a great piece of trivia. And I think the other thing is, there's a good chance Adam Thielen gets moved as well. He doesn't make any sense on this team. So, yeah, it's not inspiring. It's the worst possible offensive situation imaginable, but just being a wide receiver 1 for an NFL team does count for something.
Right, and if the targets are going to go somewhere, just go to the guy you took in the first round as you're trying to build something forward. So I like Legette, especially as a stash if you're just looking to fill out the back end of your bench. 85% available even surprises me. How about Jalen McMillan here, Jay? He's 51% available. The good news for McMillan is that he's been out there and he's running a lot of routes, and he did get 7 targets. The bad news is, and this was my number one concern for him as a prospect going to the pro, he's not really taking over and dominating the slot role for this team. He's playing on the outside more often than a guy like the veteran Sterling Shepard being there.
Yeah, indeed. And it looks like that middle of the field role is largely owned by Cade Otton, and Cade Otton is the Bucks pass catcher that you want the most. But of their receiving options, Jalen Millen, for now until Mike Evans comes back, looks like he is number one. And look, the best thing that he has going for him is that he's in this Liam Cohen offense with Baker Mayfield, who's just throwing for an insane amount of volume. Like, Baker Mayfield has 21 passing touchdowns and 9 interceptions. Like, he's just absolutely heaving it. And now they get this matchup against Kansas City, which, yes, is a tough matchup, but they're 8.5-point dogs.
Right.
They're going to need to be throwing, and just through volume alone, like, Baker Mayfield, for whatever his flaws, like, he puts up big volume stats, and Jalen McMillan, I think, can benefit.
Matthew, it's early in the week, but do you think McMillan is flex viable against this Kansas City team, especially as they continue to operate, of course, without Chris Godwin, but more importantly, Mike Evans as well?
I don't know that he's flex viable. I do think he should be rostered, especially if, all the guys we've talked about so far are gone in your league. But I like the fact that no Tampa Bay wide receiver had a higher route participation last week than he did. He had a 90% route participation. He had a 15% target share, and 45% of his targets this year have come on deep passes. So he does seem to have the ability to kind of take on that Mike Evans role. Obviously, Cade Otton had a big role last week as well. Chiefs are really tough. And, Shepard's going to be in the slot, right? Sterling Shepard led the team in slot targets and slot routes in week 8. But feels like Jalen McMillan has the highest upside. It's one of those that, like, we'll talk more about this as the week goes on. I just think it's one of those that you want to see it first. Baker missed him on a crosser. That would have been a big play last week against the Falcons, and I believe in the town. This is a kid who had a great training camp as well. I don't know that he's flex viable this week against the Chiefs, but I do think he needs to be rostered, and I do think better days are ahead for him.
A wide receiver injury with massive potential fantasy ramifications, of course, was the chest injury suffered by rookie Brian Thomas Jr. of the Jaguars. We got to hear from Doug Peterson this week, not only on the status of Thomas Jr., but also Gabe Davis as well.
Yeah, no, he just got a little contusion, on the left side of his chest. It's going to be sore. It's kind of a day-to-day thing.
So there's a chance he could.
Yes. Yeah, I think it's more about how much can he tolerate. Gabe should be fine. Again, it was just the shoulder. Just lost some feeling in there, and we were just kind of waiting for that to kind of come back a little bit during the game. It's just sometimes those are funny things, but should be fine.
So, Matthew, it seems like positive news on Brian Thomas Jr. Doug Peterson really undersold not being able to feel Gabe Davis's shoulder at all. I appreciated that, but I think the one people are really watching is the rookie.
For sure, and hopefully, there's different reporting out there yesterday, and you just heard from Peterson as well. We'll see how that plays, but it sounds like there's definitely still a chance that BTJ can play this week. Certainly Christian Kirk not being available, and if BTJ were to miss time, then you're looking at Gabe Davis, and it is what it is, right? If Gabe Davis can come back and play this week as well, we'll see. This is somebody who's tied for the third most end zone targets in the NFL. If Kirk and Thomas are both out this week for the Jaguars, that's 40% of Jacksonville's team targets this season. So there's certainly a lot of opportunity. I mean, you know what it is with Gabe Davis. He's either going to have 3 touchdowns or he's going to do nothing. Like, it's just like, how lucky do you feel? It's certainly not an offense that's rolling great. They're on the road at Philadelphia, which doesn't scare you that much. You'd certainly think game script will work in their favor, as Jacksonville should be behind on the road at the Eagles. Just want to mention real quickly, though, Parker Washington. Following Christian Kirk going out, he played 100% of the snaps. He's had one game in his career, week 13 of 2023. He's had one game in his career where he had a 15% target share. He went 6 for 61 and a touchdown. He's a smaller player as well, but just in terms of how often they like to go to the slot and the fact that no Christian Kirk, Ryan Thomas not 100% healthy, Gabe Davis not 100% healthy, like they're beat up. And outside of Evan Ingram, I do think in deeper leagues, Parker Washington becomes kind of interesting potentially this week, given all the injuries to Jaguars wide receivers.
To recap, Matthew's Week 9 top wide receiver waiver targets: Josh Downs, especially it sounds like there is a chance Joe Flacco would be the starter for the Colts. Cedric Tillman and Jerry Jeudy, now that Jameis Winston is under center for the Browns. They have the Chargers on deck. Keon Coleman, things are really trending the right way for him. He's got the Dolphins. Xavier Legette could be the Panthers' #1 wide receiver after the trade deadline. He's 85% available. Jalen McMillan is out there running a lot of routes right now for a team that throws the ball a lot in the Bucs. They got the Chiefs on deck. And then the Jaguars, depending on the injury status of Brian Thomas Jr., Gabe Davis, Parker Washington, a deeper add.
Hey, it's Matthew Berry from NBCSports.com and Rotoworld.com, and I want to thank you so much for watching whatever it is you just watched, or if nothing else, being too lazy to click out of the autoplay after this video started, after whatever it is you actually wanted to watch finished. But now that you're here, I'd like to take a moment here to ask you respectfully now, okay? I'm asking you respectfully to subscribe to the NFL on NBC YouTube channel. You'll get the latest Roto-World fantasy news headlines, all sorts of great shows, including my own Fantasy Football Happy Hour. So go subscribe now. Again, I'm asking respectfully.